Hey everyone, my name is Mike with JetM, and in today's video we'll try to answer one simple question: is which vibe coding AI coding tool is the best? And I mean, frankly, there are lots of tools right now in the market. You can go to the places like Product Hunt and see the category of best vibe coding tools, and there are, I think, at this point there are around 70 tools. And on top of that, there are different kind of adjacent categories like AI code editors, which probably overlap but not heavily with the previous category. And how many do we have? Like 50. So it's probably around 100 or even more different AI coders out there. And it's pretty overwhelming. When I first started to kind of get into that space, it was really hard to kind of wrap my head around like which is the best one. Is there just one specific best tool like that trumps any other tool? And so pretty much in this video, we'll try to answer this question. And as opposed to just like just dumping on you this kind of whole list of like tools or my personal recommendation, I'll try to approach it from kind of more scientific, not scientific, but it's more rational kind of approach, walking through how to think about choosing kind of the best tool. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll get a good understanding of how you can think about these tools and apply certain tips and tricks to choose the one that works for you. So as I said, there are lots of tools out there, but pretty much to answer the question, what works, what's the best tool for your use case? We need to look at pretty much two major things: the needs and requirements, like your use case. What are you trying to achieve? What kinds of applications you are trying to build? And the second one, which is often overlooked, but it's probably even becomes more important, is the future proof. And right away, I have to admit that it's impossible to choose one like solid 100% future-proof tool because the landscape is changing so rapidly, right? It's just like the use cases are blending into one another, new tools are popping up. It's just the whole market is still in the process of figuring out what works best, right? So to say. But it doesn't mean that we cannot uh, still make our bets and kind of make educated guesses on what will work for us best. So if we think about let's say we want to build whatever application, a mobile app or internal CRM or some portal for our vendors, right? The range of applications that you can build with these tools is massive. But we can roughly divide them into several major categories of how you get from your idea of the application to the functional working application that you or your users, your customers can use. And the first one is obvious. It's prompting, right? It's like you go to the chat and you prompt, you describe your idea, you use certain techniques, maybe like prompting techniques, and hopefully just magic happens and you get your application. But unfortunately, in practice, it doesn't work that way because tools like Lovable, Bolt, Replit, especially the first two, they're more designed to like just initially they were kind of heavily prototyping tools. So you can get your version one, but your version one is very rarely a production ready application. Like, and let's be honest, even if you kind of iterate over kind of prompting, it's still like you only maybe getting 70% there, 80% there, but it's really hard to get a production ready application level, right? So there are lots of techniques out there how to prompt better and whatnot. But so pretty much here, the biggest obstacles, the biggest thing in a way is it's super fast, but it's not precise. You don't have control over kind of little details of the application. Next, we have like traditional and enhanced now with AI coding, so inline editing. So think Cursor, Windsurf, or Cloud Code. These are the tools initially targeting developers who know how to code. Now you have the whole kind of ecosystem of agents where you can just like, as in Lovable, you can kind of just prompt your way into building an application, but you have this kind of inline editing kind of fallback where you can, if you know how to adjust code, you can always do that. And the obvious kind of upside is that it's you have full control. If you know what you're doing, have full control over what you can build, right? Kind of to the pixel, and in terms of backend logic, also you can build any workflow. But it's much slower, and it requires you to be quite technical. Now, there is a third option, which is now kind of buried, and its peak, so to say, has already is in the past. It's a low code, no code, right? It's maybe if you've been around for quite a while, you remember there was a hype of low code, no code tools, uh, and there is still legitimate tools out there nowadays that you can use. And low code, no code, it's a funny thing because they try to strike this nice balance, nice sweet spot between the two, kind of the first two things, right? It's not too slow, but it gives you enough control and enough precision to build certain production ready application, not maybe enterprise grade, but you can get a functional working application with that. So now that we've kind of laid out these three buckets, we can think of, you can already start probably seeing the pattern that we're seeing here is probably the biggest dimension. If we try to assess all these tools like V0, Replit, Bolt, whatever, uh, you can look at kind of map them across the spectrum of how much control you have, right? That's precision and control, and speed, how fast you can get to a certain version, right? And unfortunately, you can't get both, right? You have to pick your poison, so to say. And this is where we can now start to get a first feel of like how we can categorize these tools and to kind of going towards this final decision of like what's the best tool for you. So for example, Lovable, it's probably like all about speed, right? They're adding some new features, which we'll talk about later, but like at the core, they're still very kind of, their core value proposition, so to say, is just like get things down, just like think about the application, and you get it, right? And the other side of the spectrum, like cursor is obviously here, right? It gives you lots of precision, lots of control if you know how to use it, but it's not as fast, right? You have to do lots of things, kind of inline coding, or even if it's an agent, right? You have to be more precise about it. And we can later we'll see that there are lots of different other dimensions that we can also kind of use to try to navigate that landscape to get a better understanding of what the best tool is for your specific use case. So the funny thing, if we look at once again, going back to, we have like AI chat heavy. You just dump your ideas into a chat format, just like natural language recognition, and you get the application. That's kind of the Lovable, so to say, as a prominent example. Uh, they started all with speed, right? They had in the beginning, they didn't have a like editor, which kind of UI editor that they have right now. You couldn't deploy application. You had just you could just think and just speak or type, and you get the application. And on the other side of the spectrum, we have like no code, right? Tools like Glide or JetAdmin. They were trying to kind of go after precision and control, but not too much, so that kind of precision and control for non-technical people. Let's just put it that way. And the funny thing is that if you look at the evolution of these two cohorts, and even like the third part is like IDE's cursor, is they kind of trying to converge into the same thing, right? Because too much speed and too little control, it's probably not good enough. It's fine for prototyping, but not more than that. And too much precision is control, it's great, but if the speed is not there, and it can only be utilized by technical people like engineers, well, it's also very limiting. So they're trying to kind of find the sweet spot, and we can see that in their evolution. So, for example, if we look at the evolution of Lovable, they added visual editor, and they launched full stack kind of Lovable version, which we know them for right now. Down the line, kind of adding this control and precision component, which is crucial to this kind of fast and kind of nice chat with your AI sort of functionality. And kind of no code, low code application, they went the other direction. And they had initial kind of no code, low code functionality, which gave enough control and precision. But now they adding this AI chat functionality where you can kind of chat to create a database, or you can write SQL, or you can generate UI components using AI chat. So adding this kind of speed component to it. So as you can see, they're kind of moving in the same direction. Now, how does this all, like I'm kind of almost ranting at this point, how does it help you to, how can it help you to choose the right application? So uh, I can invite you to think about the landscape in terms of like several key, uh, let's say, dimensions, right? And understand where each tool sits on these spectrums. And from there, we'll have a much clearer picture of like what works best for what use case. So now the first thing is control, right? You have, we already talked about, like on low end, you have Lovable, Bolt, V0. They have visual editing, but still it's pretty low control. You still will struggle to build production application, like real world, so to say, application. And on the other side of the spectrum, I even it's not in the scope of our video, but just to illustrate kind of the spectrum, it's the full stack frameworks like Laravel, whatever you name it. It's pretty much the highest control that you can get. You can build anything with incredible precision, but it takes lots of resources and lots of time. And so this is the spectrum we're operating within. And obviously, Cursor and Windsurf, these are great tools, and they give you lots of control, right? And if we kind of go to the lower side of the spectrum, we have other tools. We have the middle ground of like tools like JetAdmin, which was initially no code, low code tool, and now it's kind of the hybrid. Then we have the designer tools, which is also very interesting. It's kind of the tools that if you are a product manager or a designer and you need kind of, you are heavy on design component, there are a specific cohort of tools that can do that. And then we have Replit, which out of the, if we bucket them into the kind of sort of say pure vibe coding tools, probably Replit and are the Base 44 are the kind of the ones that give you the most control, and they're heavily betting in that direction. You can see their kind of change log. They're adding features that move them towards that kind of. They will probably sit much higher here. For if I am to bet, like Replit will probably sit closer here somewhere in the future. But that's about control. Like what else do we have? We have learning curve, right? How fast you can kind of spin up, and even without specific knowledge to get to start building things. Obviously, at the left side of the spectrum, we have the frameworks, and Bolt, Lovable, and V0 are probably you have the fastest learning curve, you have the shortest learning curve. You can pretty much, like, you just use your intuition, and they have a very extensive library of like different practices and whatnot. But essentially, you can just jump in without any previous knowledge and just like dump your thinking, what how you envision your application, and they're gonna kind of give you the app. And sort of like uh, to the a little steeper learning curve, we have Base 44 and Replit, and you already see how these different dimensions, there are trade-offs between them, right? You have here more control with Replit, but here we have like a steeper learning curve, which is a also a very useful framework how to think about these dimensions. It's just like you can't get a one tool that kills it in all parameters, right? You have to think in terms of trade-offs that you're making and pick the dimensions that are more important to you, right? If you need to spin up something really quick prototyping, but you would like to have some control, still, like this is your kind of primary dimension. You probably lean towards Bolt and Lovable to just like spin up something really fast. Now, the third I mentioned is scalability, which is often overlooked, especially if you're kind of prototyping. But if you're building something serious, it's very important. So you've built your V0 version, right? And probably if it's a real business, if you're building business around that, or if it's an internal tool, right? You will iterate over time. You will add some additional functionality. There's going to be more people using it, right? So, and how well will the application adapt to these changes kind of as you grow? That's the biggest question, because you don't want to kind of build this in one application and I have to switch to another halfway through, right? Even though it's not as scary as many people might think, but still, it will save you some time. So obviously, once again, our frameworks are the most scalable ones out there. Then you have Cursor, Windsurf, because pretty much essentially you just own a code base. You can kind of just kind of commit it to your GitHub repo and pretty much deploy it wherever you want and do whatever you want with this code, right? They give you that. Uh, and then on this side of the spectrum, we have like kind of sort of tools that try to own the infrastructure for you, right? You don't own the code for the most part, with some exceptions, but you still have this scalability, which spans across like relatively reasonable. Like if you're not building something enterprise grade, if you're just scaling from hundreds to thousands to 10,000s of users, you can do this within that platform, within this ecosystem. So, and these tools are relatively similar in that regard, with once again different bits of functionality, uh, kind of changing the picture. And so, for example, base 44 and Replit are sitting here closer to the middle. Then we have kind of no-code, low-code tools like JetAdmin sitting in the middle, which once again, they're probably the most scalable tools out there, which do not allow you to kind of export your code, right? So you can kind of scale within that platform. So that's kind of what you want. If you're planning, if you're shooting high from the start, you have to probably think of tools that are not on the left side of the spectrum, because you will have to switch otherwise pretty soon. Now, use case coverage. This one is sort of like, it's not necessarily a dimension, but it kind of gives you an idea of the variety of use cases you can build. So think of it like, is it multi-purpose or is that super specific? So for example, on one side, you have obviously my favorite like frameworks. You can build whatever you want. But then you can see that Bolt and Lovable are sitting here quite far to the right here. So they are very multi-purpose. You can build lots of different things. Like for example, in Lovable and Bolt and V0, you can build both internal tools and customer facing, like consumer applications, right? So this is kind of how the breadth of use cases you can build. On the other side of the spectrum, we have like tools like Superblocks or Retool, which gives you AI functionality, but they are very targeting very specific cohort of use cases. Like for example, Superblocks are targeting internal tools, and specifically like enterprise internal tools. So it's very narrow. You can't build anything. But for this purpose, Superblock is great. So these are four dimensions that you can think of. Additional one, the bonus one is kind of what you can do with it. Is it just code generation, or you can also deploy it, or you can also maintain it. So kind of the versatility of the platform. I decided not to map it, not to overwhelm you with the amount of information, but you can just dig deeper on your own in that direction if you want to. So what does it all mean, right, Mike? So what would you recommend, right? That was the whole premise of this video. But as I said, I will give my recommendation like really kind of short, because obviously you can get away without it. But uh, I think like if you watch the whole video, you now can see different dimensions and different things that you can weight different tools against one another on each dimension, then choose which dimension is more important to you, and then make your decision. Yes, it takes more time. Yes, I'm kind of putting it on you as opposed to just like giving you a solution, but that's the one, another trade-off, right? If you want uh, to make a decision that will work really well for you, you have to invest your time. You have to understand the landscape to some degree. There's no workaround, right? Um, so, what about recommendation, right? I kind of suggest you to think about this in maybe to simplify it in ask three questions. So first, while probably the most important is that can you code? Can you edit code? Like how technical you are. If you're pretty technical, now the decision tree kind of shrinks significantly. The next question is who will use your application? So pretty much these two questions. If you know how to code, and you have customers who will be the primary users, you're building a customer facing application, then Cursor is probably your best bet. Like all in all, it's a very well rounded application. It's not sharp, it's very polished at this point. They're adding tons of functionality. They're going heavy on agents even, right? So um, and they're not forgetting about developers, right? They're also investing in developing the IDE part of the product. So that's your probably best bet. If you're planning to build for internal users or vendors, merchants, resellers, right? Kind of them somewhere in between. Probably Retool and Superblocks are two options I would consider. Retool is very huge right now. Superblocks is more for like enterprise users, but with Retool you can pretty much build a great variety of in the internal tools. And if you are a developer, they kind of polished every little details to make you feel at home, essentially. Now, the kind of second branch is if you're not technical, if you're just a dreamer with a big idea in your head, next question for you is that one again, do you want to build for customers? And if you're building for customer, it's a consumer application or even a B2B business, doesn't matter, but you're building for customers, you should ask yourself, third question is how complex is your application? How pretty much that's kind of the proxy for how much control do you need, right? Kind of the primary dimension that we've discussed over the course of the last 20 minutes. And if it's if it's relatively simple, right? If prototyping or some application that we're not sure whether it's gonna become something big or not, it's just Lovable and Bolt, probably two best options. I would choose Lovable once again because they're more established and they're just overall a bit more polished product. But you can choose essentially whatever you like more from the UI perspective. I would say that. And if it's quite complex, then kind of hot take, Cursor. You can use Replit, which is kind of your traditional AI coder. But I dare you to use Cursor because I was kind of semi-technical. I wouldn't call myself a technical person, but I don't know how to code. And after spending maybe like 2 weeks of wrapping my head around Cursor, I mean, it's a game changer. You can once you kind of overcome this anxiety of like, oh, it looks intimidating IDE and whatnot, and it's probably used by developers. It's really powerful. It gives you tons of control, and it's actually not that hard. You cannot touch a single line of code like and build really complex applications. Now, so I recommend you to try it. And now, if you are non-technical and you're building an application for your internal users or vendors or whatnot, like whoever, like the resellers or partners, let's put them in that category. Then you ask if you're building a complex application. I would recommend JetAdmin, and full disclosure, I'm working for JetAdmin, so no surprise. But I really think it's a great product for this specific use case. If you're non-technical or semi-technical, and you want to build complex application for your like a portal or like internal tool, JetAdmin is great because now it kind of hits the sweet spot of like providing this kind of speed with AI natural language chat. And there's always this control drag and drop kind of low code, no code functionality sitting just besides waiting for you to interact with it. And you can kind of combine almost simultaneously the best of two worlds. So that there's that. And if it's not very complex, then again, Lovable and Glide. You can still build internal applications with Lovable, very simple ones. But once again, if you don't need something complex, Lovable is great. And Glide, it's kind of from the no-code world initially. They also have lots of AI functionality there. And if you're planning to spin up some vendor portal, but which is really basic, nothing fancy, Glide is probably great. You can hook up your Google Sheets or Airtable or whatever they have internal database. You can do this pretty fast. So there you have it. So that's my recommendation, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much, guys, for your time. And yeah, if you like the video, thumbs up and subscribe. Have a great one. Thanks. Bye.